Hey guys, it's Troy and it's time for another new pen video, and I thought I'd do something that is new, something literally brand new. This just hit the market this week. I'm talking, it was released to the public on a Thursday. Today is Saturday as I am recording this. Obviously it is a TWSBI. TWSBI is a brand that's been around for a while. I've got several of them, and I've shared some of them here with you. You're probably familiar with some of them, like a VAC 700, a Diamond 580, the TWSBI Eco, all very good pens. And you've also got this, the TWSBI Go, that came out that a lot of you picked up because it is on the lower end and has a huge ink capacity. And I'll refer to this one here again probably in just a little bit. These are some TWSBIs that you may be more familiar with. This is a TWSBI Swipe, S-W-I-P-E. It is made in Taiwan, like it says here on the package. But I decided to pick up the broad nib, just because I don't have a broad nib in a TWSBI, and knowing my previous experiences with the TWSBI Go, I wanted to go for a broader nib, and quite honestly, some of the nibs I've been getting here lately have been on the broad side. But the Swipe comes in two different colors. It came in a blue and a gray. I picked up the blue. And the blue was called a Prussian blue. I'm not going to pair it with Prussian blue ink because I already have others inked up with that ink, but it has one fountain pen, a spring converter, a piston converter, and one cartridge. So this is the packaging that it comes in. It's a little bit different probably than some of the TWSBI packaging that you're used to. Usually you may be more familiar with a box sort of like this that it may come in, and this was like this one was the VAC 700R. And there's some others that they're more of a plastic box that they would come in, but this is the packaging for the TWSBI Swipe. So let's see about getting it out of the package. That sleeve comes off, and then you've got this white plastic box. It's actually fairly small. They do have it sealed on both ends here with a round sticker. So I am literally taking it out of the package for the first time because it just showed up in the mail. So this will be kind of a first impressions video, but I'll also give you a writing sample. I'll show you how to ink it up, and I'll show you what it comes with. So you open this package up, and here's what is inside. One of the neat things, like I showed you on that package about the contents, it does have several different filling mechanisms that it comes with, which is kind of intriguing and one of the reasons why I went ahead and picked it up. So you will have the spring converter, the piston converter, and a cartridge. So it can be a cartridge converter style, and it can be a spring converter. So let's go ahead and open up this little bag here, see what it contains. You open her up here, and you've got a big old converter, gigantic converter, a humongous ink cartridge, and a spring, and that's all that was in that particular bag. The pen sits in here just like this, and you've got that cellophane or plastic wrap. Pull that right off, and this is the Prussian blue. I really like the look of it. The camera, to me, and the lighting makes it look a lighter blue or a brighter blue than it really is. It's kind of a darker blue in reality. On the top, you do have your TWSBI logo, which, quite honestly, always kind of reminded me of, a hazardous materials logo or a biohazard logo, but that's just my my sick way of thinking. But you've got that red disc that is very typical of TWSBI, even on their upper end pens. It's got a kind of a different clip. The clip kind of just goes into two slots in the plastic on the top here, and I'm not sure if that is removable or not, but it doesn't seem to be right off the top. So it might be down in here into two holes that are in there. So, and it's got a very flat plastic clip. That clip is extremely stiff right there. It's not going anywhere. There's a slip top. You open it up, and you've got that clear section. In that clear section, like you can tell that I'm kind of into demonstrators, but it also reminds me a little bit of the TWSBI Go when you look at that with that clear section. So you can see you've got the comb feed, clear plastic, and you've got your TWSBI nib stuck right in there with the TWSBI logo and engraving on it. You do have faceted sides, TWSBI logo molded right into the plastic, and on the tail end you've got kind of a flat, just kind of an indented flat, just a little bit. Let's go ahead and open her up. There, it takes a little bit to get that, to break that seal. And what they have in here is really interesting. This is their spring-fed converter. And what you would do is you press that down like that. And you notice the spring is on the inside of that converter. And that converter does come right out. So if you look, it is just a plain old converter style, but instead of using either a slide or a screw jack, or even I've seen some that were just a piston, then this is actually a spring-loaded piston with the spring on the inside, which I thought was just a little bit different. And you can see it's really wide, it's really big compared to what you would normally see with a converter. You look at the other style converter, and you do have a screw. So if you like this mechanism better, then you can have the screw converter with that double seal piston there, as well as your double seal piston here. So huge in terms of its girth, so that should give you a really big ink capacity on that. And you also have a ginormous ink converter. Just to give you some perspective, here's a standard international short converter. You can tell the really big difference in the two. But let's go ahead and look at the hole. So it appears to be a standard international style, at least opening on that cartridge. But you can see that it's really girthy by comparison. I mean, there's definitely a big difference in the girth between the two. Now, one of the things that you're supposed to do is you're supposed to take this, put it in, pierce that, and put this spring behind it, essentially in here, and you're supposed to use it that way in order to keep that ink cartridge in place. And it does not pierce it me just doing this, and I don't want it to, by the way, because I'm going to use this. And one of the reasons I wanted to use this is it really made me think about the TWSBI Go. I gotta be honest with you, okay, I wasn't a big fan of the TWSBI Go only because of its performance. It felt a little cheaper on the plastic. I didn't like the way it felt. I didn't mind the girth of it at all, but if you notice, it's got the same kind of spring-loaded piston on it, only here the spring is actually on the outside rather than on the inside, which I found to be extremely interesting when you compare that to the Swipe and how that spring literally is inside, meaning that ink is going to sit inside that spring on the inside. So I figured I would go ahead and try this one out. We all essentially know how a screw jack converter would work. We also generally know how a cartridge will work. So I wanted to see how well this is going to work and how well it sucks up ink. So here's a little thing that comes with it, this little piece of paper. It says optional cartridge, optional, use with cartridge, not needed during normal use. So you see that spring, like I showed you, how that spring was inside. You would only use it during use of that cartridge, and that's in other languages as well. So, very, very interesting. I do like the fact that TWSBI included all of this here together. There are for sale, to my knowledge, more cartridges, as well as perhaps some more converters that are optional purchases, but I do like the fact that they included all this together at a retail price of about $27. $26.99 is what this was being offered for sale, pre-sale, when I placed my order. So I'm going to go ahead and try to ink this baby up. I'm going to use some Diamine ink here just because I want to. I'm going to try the Presidential Blue. I almost picked it at random. I said, you know, what decent size bottle of ink do I have? What's a blue? Because I kind of wanted to go with the Prussian blue, but I didn't want to use Prussian blue from Diamine because I've already used Prussian blue in another pen. So I haven't used the Presidential Blue in quite a while. So I picked up this bottle a little while back, and we'll go ahead and ink this baby up, and I'll give you some statistics on this particular pen. You've already seen how it looks in comparison to some other TWSBIs, so I'm not going to go into a whole lot of comparisons with other pens, because TWSBI is kind of ubiquitous by now, and most people know about TWSBIs. So let's go ahead and I'll show you how to ink this baby up, and I'll show you some statistics about this pen, and we'll give you a writing sample. Okay, as promised, I decided to use the spring converter on this baby, and we'll see how she fills up, and then we'll see how well it writes. So I'm going to try to tip this way just for the viewing purposes for you. Put this down in. I'm going to depress that, put it down in the ink, and that's only one push, and you can see I've got about a half a fill right there. So let's go ahead and try it one more time, because it was completely dry when I did it the first time. Press and let go. And let's see what kind of fill I got. Well, again, I filled up more of the section this time, and looking at the ink, it is definitely not all the way full. So let's go ahead and press it down again. Let's give it another time. Alright, that's the third try, and you can see on the third depression, this is what I've got for ink. It's about a half fill, I think. When you look at it overall, it's filled to about here. So that's about a half of a fill right there. So just out of curiosity, off camera, I went ahead and decided, let's try that whole refill sequence yet again, just to see if I can get a better fill on it. But no, I essentially on that, I only get still on the spring right about a half a fill. So no matter what, I'm going to get about a half a fill. So here we go. The pen has been filled. You can see you've got an ink window right there. So you can see the ink sloshing around when the pen is put back together. And the cap does not cover that up. You can see where it comes down. The cap comes down and meets right there, so you do have that ink window. So when you go to pick it up, you've got a fairly good girth to it. It fits fairly comfortably in my hands. And the section here is perfectly round right here, and then you've got a little bit of a flare out before you get down to where the nib portion is, and you've got a good ways to go before you get to where the nib collar comes down. So that actually keeps you a good ways away from that nib, which is, to me, is not a bad thing. You don't have any harsh step downs here. You can feel just a little bit of a step down, but you got a good amount here. It tapers down just a little bit from this point where the cap meets the barrel at the section. So that does come down here just a little ways, just a slight taper down to that flare. And then of course you've got a long enough throw on that barrel where actually it fits comfortably there. So I could write with it either posted or unposted. Looking at posting it, of course it's going to post very nicely. And this is not a heavy pen. This is all plastic. So this is actually a fairly lightweight pen, and it doesn't really make a difference posted or unposted when you go to pick it up and write with it. So I like the feel of it right where it is. So let's go ahead and roll with this baby, and we will show you for the first time this nib put to paper. This is the TWSBI. And this particular pen model, like I was telling you, is the Swipe. Now, I'm going to give you an unpopular opinion. I didn't like the TWSBI Go. I didn't like this medium nib on it, didn't like how it wrote. It was convenient, had a lot of positives to it in terms of its construction and its design. However, I didn't like the materials that were used in it. This actually feels, even though it's nowhere near high quality compared to like the even the TWSBI Eco. This still actually feels better in terms of being better designed and constructed, in my opinion, above the TWSBI Go. Okay, so I also decided to order that broad nib. This broad nib is far superior to the nib that I have here on this TWSBI Go, in my opinion. I have a medium nib there. I also have a medium nib on this Eco. This Eco is a great writer. Very reliable pen, holds a good amount of ink. It's a piston filler. I like it. It's a great low-end pen, a great starter pen. This Swipe here, in my opinion, just from what I wrote here, and nothing more than just what I wrote here, I like this better than I like either my Eco in the way that it writes, and definitely better than that TWSBI Go, because I was no fan of that Go. I did get a broad steel nib. I will tell you, it's a very juicy broad. It lays down a lot of ink. I can tell you just looking at it how deep blue that ink is and how wet it is just looking at it on Rhodia paper, but it is also an extremely smooth writer. I got pens that are several $100s that don't write this smooth, but it's also very wet when you look right there. So at least on the broad, I can't speak obviously to the fine or to the medium nibs, but I do like what I'm seeing so far. I have not written with it on anything except the Rhodia pad. You're seeing it for the first time just like I am. I did put into this particular pen some diamine, and I used the Presidential Blue. I don't think I need to do any more smear tests because I've already done that for you. But let's go ahead and, so far it just glides across the page. Perfectly smooth pen. Perfect writing pen so far. I am liking what I am seeing. So I'm going to do real fast. Great writing pen so far. TWSBI Swipe. Yes, I would give it a thumbs up. Not that I draw good at all, but so far, yeah, I'll give this a thumbs up. I'm liking what I'm seeing. I like what I feel. I like the ink window on it so you can see that you actually have some ink. That was a good thought to build that ink window in there. The facets here, you don't really feel it. You know, you got, it doesn't roll as it is. So let's put it on a hard surface just to see if it will roll with those facets. Now with the facets it doesn't really roll a whole lot, but then you've got that clip as a roll stop. So, you know, for $26, $27 US dollars retail, you know, not a bad investment. Again, it is a plastic pen, so if you're expecting like top-notch quality in construction, you're not going to get the top-notch, but you are going to get some decent quality in terms of its performance. I will take a low-end constructed pen in plastic that performs very well over a high-end constructed pen that writes like garbage, and I've got a bunch of those here in my collection. So I think TWSBI actually did fairly well with this. I've got no complaints about it whatsoever. I was under no illusion after having that TWSBI Go about how well it would be constructed or how well it would write. You know, I didn't think it would be awesome, but you know what? I got to rate that right here so far as an awesome experience. So I'm happy with that. TWSBI Swipe, much improved, in my opinion, over my experience that I had with the Go, incomparable to anything else that I've had from some of the upper end TWSBIs. So I would rate this as a good value. $27 or so, $26.99 US retail, and when you can get it in two different colors, Now that's a downside if you wanted more color choice than that, but the Prussian blue to me is still a good looking color. I definitely didn't want the gray this time around because I got a lot of grays here in my pens, and I kind of am partial to blues. So there you go, broad nib. At least I can give you a broad nib recommendation for the TWSBI for the Swipe.